Hi there, my name is David and welcome to BricksBlocks&MOCs. For today's video, I'm gonna share with you my 5 best designing tips for creating more awesome LEGO models. But before getting into that, please consider subscribing and liking if you like what I do. And also if you want, check out my website as well. But yeah, let's get into the video now. Alright, so my first tip is parts awareness. I talked quite a bit about this in my AMG GT 4-door video, but basically parts awareness is just knowing about which parts that actually exist in LEGO. And yeah, it's just something I decided to call it. But why is that important then? It's because if you have a pretty good understanding of which parts that actually exist, which I think a lot of you do, it's easier to come up with certain solutions for creating certain things. Take for example my Porsche 992 Turbo S, where I came up to use this minifig Barrett piece to create the headlights of the 992. And that's a perfect example of a piece I kinda knew about, but I didn't think of it. So what I did then was I knew that I was looking for a piece that was in the shape of the modern 911 headlights. So I went on to Bricklink and thought about pieces that could work. So what I first thought of was some kind of minifig hat. So then I went on to the category minifig headgear and just scrolled through until I found this piece that was almost in the perfect shape for the 911 headlights. So parts awareness or knowing which parts that exist in LEGO is a great tip for designing more awesome LEGO models. Alright, next tip is take inspiration and don't take inspiration. What? That's not a tip, that's just confusing. Let me explain. So, when it comes to LEGO, and actually a lot of creative things nowadays, you can find endless amount of inspiration out there. There's just so many creations with so many creative solutions people have come up with that you can take inspiration for to your own models, because that can help you to level up your designing game quite fast. But I many times feel that too much inspiration can limit you when it comes to having your own original thoughts of how you're gonna create something. I feel like a bit that this is especially true to the LEGO community, because I feel like there are a lot of similar models out there, which I absolutely get, because there are just so many LEGO pieces that we can work with. And once someone figure out that perfect concept for creating a particular thing or whatever, then of course it can be so awesome to take inspiration for that, to do your own take on whatever you're creating. But what I found is that there's almost always at least another solution, if not better solution out there. And at least what I feel, when I get too much inspiration, it's very hard for me to think originally. Instead this just such an awesome solution, I can't do better than that. I'm kinda stopped trying to be creative and find other solutions for whatever thing. So in the end, I think this kinda comes down to how you want to approach designing your own models, and also kinda how experienced you are. Because in the beginning I took a lot of inspirations from others, but as I become better and better, I find that I take a lot less inspiration from others, and just wanting to take on the challenge of creating something new, something of my own. So inspiration can be so awesome, but sometimes take a break and reflect a bit on how much inspiration you are taking in, and if you feel it's making you a better designer or not. And one good tip when it comes to recreating and designing cars: design a car no one, or at least very few, have recreated in LEGO. That way you are kind of forced to thinking originally. So that's a very good tip, and something I personally did when I want to start and take a bit less inspiration from others. My next tip is invest, and yeah, this will be a bit controversial, but how many times don't you hear LEGO is so expensive, it's such an expensive thing, LEGO costs so much money. And yeah, it is really expensive for a toy, but for a passion, and I might be a bit biased about this because I put in such an incredible amount of time into building with LEGO, but for an interest of yours, it doesn't necessarily have to be that expensive, because just take a look at a lot of other interests. It's a lot of passions and interests that also cost quite a bit of money. So what I personally think is that don't treat LEGO as a toy. Treat it like a passion or an interest of yours, if it is something you really love doing. But I also understand if you are a kid, it might be a bit tricky to invest anything at all into LEGO. But what I'm also seeing is that a lot of people just getting official LEGO sets. And if you really want that, that's great. But if it's something that I regret, is that I'm from the beginning, instead of getting official LEGO sets, bought just pieces so I could create my own models. And this kind of divided opinion, and you just have to do you. But some people think that it's better to just get LEGO sets and get the pieces from those. But if you are on a budget and say that you at least have a bit of a LEGO collection, it is 9 out of 10 times cheaper to get only the parts you actually need for the things you are building. So if you really want to get better at designing Lego models, you might want to consider investing a bit more into your own models and parts for those. And maybe instead of wishing for that set you kind of want for your birthday or Christmas, see if you can wish for a bit of fick pengar, as we say here in Sweden, but a bit of money for Christmas or your birthday that you can put into creating your own models. And yeah, it doesn't really need to be that much, especially if you are creating these tiny models like I do. And the good thing with Lego is that you can reuse it. So when you have a few parts, and if you're willing to take apart the models you've designed, you will have a bit of a library of parts that you can reuse for new models, and you will have to get less and less parts for your models for each new model you are creating. So yeah, that's a great tip in my opinion. But I also know that there are a lot of people that just love collecting Lego sets as well. So it's absolutely nothing wrong with getting Lego sets. You know, sets are one of the things I'm selling, and you can also learn a lot from buying Lego sets and building them. And so basically I'm just giving you some different perspectives here. Having Lego models to display is just so awesome. So yeah, that's absolutely something as well. Alright, for the fourth tip, again I'm gonna say exact opposite of what I just said. But an awesome tip is to work with what you have, because with almost every single model I design, where I think I need to order a new part to solve a particular problem, many times just leads to me finding a better solution because I didn't have the part and needed to work around it. And I also want to mention now that a great tip is to use some kind of Lego CAD program like Star.io or BricksBlocks or something, because over there you have almost all the parts that exist in Lego. So that's also a great option, especially if you're just starting out, to see which parts you tend to use a lot and then maybe order those parts. So yeah. Alright, next it's kind of an obvious tip, but it needs to be said, and that is think outside the box. And yeah, I know that's kind of what Lego is all about, but yeah, thinking outside the box is really where the magic happens. And yeah, that's many times what separates the really good Lego designers. But how can you get better at thinking outside the box then? A good tip is actually to have some kind of framework or limitation, and this actually applies to everything creative. For me, that framework or limitation is most of the time a specific car I'm going to recreate. That later boils down to recreating a headlight shape or some functions or being able to fit minifigs inside a car model. And then I just do whatever it takes and my absolute best to work around that framework or limitation. And here I want to refer a bit to the first tip I gave, which was parts awareness. Because by knowing what parts are available and so on, it's much easier to think outside the box. How you can take use of the parts that exist in Lego to create whatever shape or function or detail that you are trying to recreate. Take for example how I created the rear lights of the Koenigsegg CCX, or maybe the hood of the Urus, and how I'm about to create the rear light of the MK4 Supra, which I'm currently designing. So yeah, think outside the box, a very good tip. Alright, so a bit of a bonus tip here, and that is just start creating. Lego is not an instant gratification like so many other things today. It takes a lot of time and patience to make each and every creation, and also to become really good at it. But in my opinion, it's nothing so satisfying, enjoyable, calming, soothing, unstressful, creative and fun as just sitting down maybe with a cup of tea or coffee, maybe with some music in your ears, and designing that thing you have a burning inspiration, passion or motivation for creating with the help of those iconic Lego pieces. So yeah, that's my final and best tip. Just start creating. But yeah, that's all it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good luck with designing that awesome model. Bye for now. So yeah, parts awareness